Hello and welcome to week 4 of our weekly practice tips. Now, I must be honest, this week's presentation is more of a music lesson than it is an actual practice tip, but we're going to lay a foundation of knowledge that we're going to build upon and practice with in future videos, so bear with me. In the last 3 videos, we were talking about time signatures, which solely has to do with rhythm, but as we know now, in order to have a correct note, you need to have accurate rhythm and pitch. The right pitch in the wrong place is the wrong note, and the wrong pitch in the right place is also a wrong note. You have to have the right pitch in the right place. So this lesson is going to focus more on pitch. So therein lies the question, what is pitch? Pitch is just the name that we give frequencies. Every sound has a frequency, and if we were to give the digits of the frequency, it would get very confusing. So we call them ABC or 1, 2, 3 when we're talking about scale degrees, or even do, re, mi. The Jackson 5 wrote a lovely song about this. Go take a listen to it. Anyway, frequency is just the measurement of a repeating wave. And in our context, that wave is a sound wave. Sound waves are caused by vibration, whether it's the vibration of a string, or the vibration of a drum head, or the vibration of the air inside a horn. It's all vibration, and that vibration sends waves through the air. Our ears pick that up, and our brain interprets that as sound, right? Now you can see in our little diagram at the bottom here, fast frequencies are high-pitched, and slower frequencies are low-pitched, and that will become more and more important as we learn about sound and music. So the next 2 slides can be really kind of complicated, so I'm going to try to make these complex topics fairly simple and attainable. You could spend the rest of your life analyzing frequencies and the harmonic series and all this kind of stuff and have a lot of fun doing it, but we don't need to understand all of it for our purposes. So I'm going to try to just give the basics to help us understand what this sound / pitch / frequency thing is. So as I said before, every pitch has a frequency because pitch is just the name that we give our frequencies. In the center of this slide, you can see the piano diagram. On the keys, each key has its letter name, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, etc., 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 right? And then on the left and the right, you have the frequencies. On that left side is the frequencies of the white keys, and on the right side is the frequencies of the black keys. Now, for sound engineers, it wouldn't hurt to memorize what these frequencies are and how they relate to the note name, because that becomes important. But for our purposes, the only thing I want us to pay attention to right now is that every time you jump an octave, your frequency is twice as fast. So if you look at C2, the frequency is 65.4. If you look at C3, the frequency is 130.8, and then C4 is 261.6, right? So each time your wave gets twice as fast, it is the octave above, which is just kind of a really cool thing. All the frequencies and everything, there's just patterns between all of the music. Music is just made up of a bunch of patterns, and that is one of them. I hinted on it on the last slide, but the lower the pitch, the slower the frequency, and the slower the frequency, the larger the wave, and then vice versa, that's also true. The higher the pitch, the faster the frequency, and the faster the frequency, the smaller the wave. Now this can also be seen in instrument sizes, right? So I have 3 groups. On the far right you have toms. Here we got a kick drum, floor tom, and a high tom. The high tom is smaller and is going to produce smaller, faster waves, or a higher pitch. And the bigger the drum is, the slower the lower the pitch, the slower the frequency, and the lower the sound will be. On guitars, same thing is true. The top strings are super thin. That's going to give a higher pitch than the low strings, which are thicker. And then if you even include the bass guitar on that, the bass strings are really thick, while the high E string on a guitar is very thin. Right? Those all correlate. And then even with strings and brass, violin and trumpets are smaller than basses and tuba, which means they're going to produce a higher pitch. Smaller the instrument, smaller the wave. Higher the pitch, bigger the instrument, bigger the wave, lower the lower the pitch. So if you were to spend your life studying frequencies and sound waves and all that good stuff, you would end up running into this pattern that is always reoccurring and appears all over nature. And that pattern is called the harmonic series. Now, the harmonic series is a group of intervals with correlating frequencies, and is really the answer to every musical question you could ask, like, how does a trumpet work? Oh, the harmonic series. Why do octaves sound so good? The harmonic series. Why do we like major keys better than minor keys? I say like. Somebody's going to go, actually, I like minor keys better. But major keys are more popular than minor keys. Why? Because the harmonic series. Anyway, I mean, there's just so many things and avenues you could dive into with the harmonic series. But here's the gist. It's naturally reoccurring pattern that appears everywhere. And I'm going to explain it on a guitar because that's going to be probably the easiest thing to understand. So when you strum a guitar string, we'll work on the low E. That is your fundamental. That is the lowest note that string can play, and that's our top line on the far right over here. It says open string. Now, if you were to cut that string in half and just kind of hover your finger over it, you're going to get a harmonic. There are several harmonic tones across the guitar, and that refers to the notes in the harmonic series. So if you were to hover halfway, you would get a perfect octave above the fundamental, right? Then if you were to cut that string into thirds, then you would get a perfect fifth above the perfect octave, or an octave and a fifth above the fundamental. I'm going to try to, again, it's rather complex, so I'm going to try to simplify it, right? If you were to cut it in fourths, the string in fourths, hover your finger across any of those three spots, you would get a perfect fourth above that perfect fifth. And then if you were to cut it in fifths, you would get a major third. Now, perfect octave, perfect fifth, perfect fourth, major third. These are all just names for intervals, the intervals just being distances between the note. So the pattern of the harmonic series is perfect octave, perfect fifth, perfect fourth, major third, and then the next one would be a minor third, right? So when you want a lot of power in a chord, you play an octave. Why? Because those are the first two intervals of the harmonic series, and it just exists, and it's so nice, right? And then if you're playing guitar and you're playing power chords, those are the first three intervals of the harmonic series, which is why it sounds so powerful. Now, if we were to start at our fifth line here, the major third, and go one step farther down the harmonic series, you'd get a minor third. Now, if you stack a major third underneath a minor third, you get a major chord, which is why those major chords sound so good to our ears, because we're naturally just tuned to hear those through the harmonic series. Now, if you were to combine all of the waves into the harmonic series, if you were to combine all the lines of the harmonic series together, you would get this nice diagram on the bottom left. So that's what they look like, and then on the right is an X-ray of a conch shell. You can see the similarities there, which is just a kind of really cool pattern. Like I said, this pattern is reoccurring all over nature. It's everywhere. But when you blow into a conch shell, the fundamental note is the lowest you can get. The next interval is an octave up. The next interval, fifth, fourth, major third, minor third, so on and so forth, right? Now, what's kind of cool to understand about the harmonic series is they all resonate with each other. The waves fit inside each other, and you can see that on the bottom left. There's very little conflict in that, in that diagram. Now, because of that, you'll get sympathy vibrations and also overtones. So what is a sympathy vibration? What is an overtone? If you've ever been playing a musical instrument next to a snare drum, sometimes you'll hit a note and the snare drum will start to buzz. Why? Because you're sending sound waves through the air that resonate with that snare, the snares on the bottom of that drum, causing them to vibrate. That's a sympathy vibration. Another very common place to see a sympathy vibration is on a guitar. When you strum the low E string, it is very likely your high E string will start to vibrate on its own. Why? Because the vibrations from the lower frequency is activating that higher octave, which is just twice as fast. The frequency is twice as fast. Anyway, like I said, this gets very, very heady, but it's really cool to understand how it works. Now, one more point I want to make with this is when you play the fundamental, every note in the harmonic series also exists, and you hear it as the fundamental note or the low note, but you're also hearing every note in the harmonic series above that, which is why having the bass adds so much presence to the room, right? Without a bass player, everything just sounds kind of thin because everything else is hitting perfect fifth, perfect fourth, major third, and up. You're not accessing the fundamental note that fills everything. So that's why having the bass is so important, because you hit that open string and every note above that is resonating within that frequency. Those are called overtones. Is the notes that appear over the original tone. Now again, for sound engineers, this is important to understand, because if you get too many overtones going, you'll get a lot of feedback. You'll just get this lot of sound, because this fundamental note is vibrating every note in the harmonic series above that, and that can overload a system, which is why it's important to have knowledge of some of this so you can go, oh, I know why that's happening. That's the overtone series, or the harmonic series. Awesome. Now, like I said, the answer to any musical question you have could be related to, or is related to, the harmonic series. Now, this information is just kind of free here, but this is how brass instruments work. You have an open pitch, and that gives you a fundamental and an octave above that, fifth above that, fourth above that, major third above that, minor third, major second, so on and so forth. And then when you press a valve, you change the length of the horn, which gives you a new fundamental, and because it gave you a new fundamental, you have a new octave, a new fifth, a new fourth, a new major third, new minor third. And then you change the pitch again, right? So on and so forth, which is just kind of a really cool thing. That's how you'll see buglers or horn players play multiple notes without changing fingerings. How are they doing that? Well, they're activating the harmonic series. So how do you practice with the harmonic series? So like I said earlier, this video is more of a lesson than it is an actual practice tip. But there are some fun things that you can try to activate the harmonic series and just to grow your understanding of how it works. So if you have access to a guitar, try playing the harmonics on that string, right? You'll play an open string, cut that in half, hover your finger over the string, you'll activate a perfect octave above your fundamental. If you cut it in thirds, you'll get the perfect fifth. If you cut it in fourths, you'll get the perfect fourth, so on and so forth. So identify it. If you don't have access to a guitar string, find a rubber band, right? If you pull that rubber band tight and pluck it, it's going to have a pitch. If you stretch that twice as much, now that's going to be a perfect octave above your fundamental. And if you pull that a third farther, you'll get the fifth. A fourth farther than that, you'll get the perfect fourth, so on and so forth, right? Or if you have access to a horn or a conch shell or shofar, anything, you can try blowing air twice as fast and speeding it up in these same intervals to get different pitches. If you don't have access to a horn, try it with a PVC pipe, because you'll access the same pattern. And if you don't have a PVC pipe, find a glass bottle, because if you blow across that, the slower the air, the lower the frequency will be. And as you speed up your air, the faster the frequencies will get, and you'll access these same pitches in the harmonic series. Now, this is really just kind of a fun lesson. It's really cool. I love this stuff, this pattern, the harmonic series frequencies. I love analyzing it. It's just fun because it appears everywhere. So just have fun with it. Think about it at least twice before Sunday, and I will see you then. Have a great day. Bye.